a cup of coffee with my mom.
Well, I haven't seen you guys in a long time. We haven't done a podcast
December.
in a long time.
Yeah, when?
Yeah, it was December. We did the spectacular Christmas episode where everyone was dressed quite festively, as I recall.
Super lighthearted, a lot of fun. People loved it. Then Dad had a giant heart attack.
Yeah.
Christmas night. Listen, I will never forget that night. It was horrid.
Well, I know people are anxious to hear from you, so we should talk about that. Just so you know, I have talked about it to Chuck on the podcast a little bit before. Actually, when I was in Liechtenstein, not long after the aforementioned haircut, and before I realized it was such a terrible shearing, I sat there in my hotel room and just answered some people's questions. Mom, so many people are so worried about your husband and my dad. I mean, it's just really, it was very heartwarming. An amazing outpouring of well wishes and
There
concern.
really has
I hope you
been on
noticed that,
social
too.
media and everywhere we go. I mean, Dad can't walk down the hall without having somebody say, "How are you doing? How are you doing, Mr. Rowe?" Or "How are you doing, John? Are you feeling better? You look good. Your color's really good." People like to talk about his color. But he really is doing very well. He was a good patient. Absolutely wonderful. I hear people complain about their husbands, other women complain about their husbands when they're sick and, under the weather, and they're just terrible patients. They just can't get far enough away from them. They're just so horrible. But Dad is so appreciative of everything that I do. Really nice.
Well, I was so glad to be there. By the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, my dad had I think, a series of heart attacks the week before Christmas, and a big one on Christmas night. And he was rushed to the hospital. It's a long story. My mom has blogged about it. But, he's 91 years old, and we just really thought, honestly, what was it, like a 98% blockage, Mom, in his left main?
95 to 98 in the left main artery, the ventricle. And without that part of your heart working, you're gone. You just can't survive without that. And he woke up at 4:14 a.m. We both remember the time. And he had just come back from the bathroom and just stumbled into bed and said, "I need one of those pills. I need one of those pills. The pain is so bad I can't stand it." And so I got him a nitroglycerin. We put it under his tongue. I checked the clock, and then I called security here at the home right away. And they were here like 2 minutes later.
That's great.
And they brought
That's
oxygen, and they deal with this all the time. I think this is probably one of their main things that they respond to. Because
Sure.
there are 2,000 people here in independent living, and one of the the major concerns with the elderly, especially men, is the heart. And so they're very used to that. And before he even came here, he called 911. I saw the red lights from the ambulance on the wall here through the window shortly after they arrived, shortly after security arrived with the oxygen. And they gave him, I think it was they who gave him 3 aspirins right away. And then, the paramedics came in and took over, and I was trying to get some clothes on. I'd run over to the closet and trying to get dressed because I knew I was going to be going to the hospital. But I could hear. It's funny. It was both comforting and horrifying to see them working on Dad so hard. It was comforting to see that he was getting the attention and that people were here helping him, but horrifying that when they said, "Stay with me, John, stay with me," And I knew, it's
was a
hard to
close
talk
thing.
about it even now, and I knew it was really serious, and he was just sweating profusely. He was in a puddle on the bed and on the pillow, and it was just running off his face. He was in such agony. So I think they might have put one more nitro under his tongue, and then I don't know what all they did. I was busy
It's a
being
blur.
worried.
Yeah, yeah. And this on the heels of 5 or 6 days of, I won't say a misdiagnosis, but we just didn't know what was going on. They thought it might be acid reflux. They thought it might be some digestion thing. They were giving him Gas X, right? All this stuff is going on, and we're just waiting to get through the holidays so we can get to see an internist.
Right.
And then this.
Well, they
and
had
then,
done all the tests that you do, a stress test, that was negative, echocardiogram, everything showed that it was not the heart. So when I talk about misdiagnosis, I feel like I should have been smarter the week before. I should have said to them, no, it has to be something heart related, because he's having these terrible chest pains down his arms, and those symptoms are indicative of a heart attack. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So they really took it seriously when he got to the hospital and arranged for him to go to Union Memorial Hospital. First of all, they did an angiogram, which is a picture of the heart, and they did blood work, which showed that he had had a major heart attack. There were enzymes in his blood that showed signs of a heart attack. So they took him to Union Memorial Hospital, where practically right away they put in 3 stents, took him to the cath lab and put in 3 stents.
And that's the time I basically got there. Scott was there for a few days. I came in when he finally came home. And anyway, we don't have to relive the whole thing, but I just know, on the one hand, people have just been so curious and they really do care. And on the other hand, so many people listening have been through this. They've been with a loved one who goes through this event. Or like me, they've been 3,000 miles away from a loved one and feeling so completely helpless. And, you're suddenly just praying and your whole day is upside down. And it's not a new thing, but it's new for you. It's new for everybody the first time they go through it. And it's a heck of a thing.
I've learned a lot.
It's a big deal.
The response, the outpouring is so huge that you can't deal with it. You simply can't deal with it. Even family, Dad and I have like 36 cousins, and almost immediate family, and we just couldn't take everybody's calls and texts and emails, and I finally ignored them. And I did tell a couple people I'll be on social media, so every day or every couple of days I posted about Dad's progress, and honestly, the response was amazing. Lord, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and comments. And
it's a hell of a thing, Chuck, when you call your mother to see how your dad's doing, and she says, if you're really interested, you can check my status.
Check me out. Yes.
So what?
Check me out on Instagram and Facebook. It's all there. I'll talk to you.
It was a
some other time.
blow-by-blow description, and I wrote one that I called "The Patient Pooped," and the thing is, so many people can relate to this when you've had serious surgery. Going to the bathroom again is a big deal, and so I talked about that and his first shower and how I don't want to let him out of my sight, and I talked about all of my responses. People related big time. They all have had some experience with this, with a loved one.
Yeah, but it's weird, Mom. For all of millennia, people have endured this level of fear and anxiety and uncertainty and so forth. But it's a very, very recent thing that people might choose to share it with a few 100,000 strangers. That's new. And I remember talking to you just a couple of years ago when you were very, very grudgingly entertaining the idea of having a Facebook page. I remember telling you, look, I didn't want one either. But if you're going to have one, you can't simply use it to tell people, watch my podcast, buy my whiskey, watch my
buy
TV
my
show,
books.
listen to my song, buy my book, right? I mean, it's part of it, but there's, it took me a while to really understand what the unspoken bargain is between you and a few 100,000 people you're never going to meet, but you let them into your life. And now, through some very strange phenomenon, it's not only okay, it's almost required to let them know that your husband pooped.
Well, I said it
Right?
very tastefully. I mean, I didn't, And on day 3, the patient pooped. Well, everybody knows what that means, of course. But in every subsequent post, I give them updates of Dad's condition. And of course, they're not all medical. And can I share this one with you that I did
I can't stop you.
3 days ago?
Please?
Actually, it was on the 14th, Valentine's Day. Big day. My husband decided to drive himself to cardiac rehab. I'll be fine, he said. I have to do it sometime. He was right, but still. After our departure check, hearing aids, teeth, glasses, cell phone, car keys, and lanyard to get back into the building, we hugged and kissed, and John left with his meclizine in one pocket and his nitroglycerin in his other jeans pocket. 2 hours later, I watched him pull into our parking spot, said amen, and ran back to my computer. As we left for the dining room and a special Valentine's dinner this evening, John used his key to lock our door while I walked on ahead. Hey, what's with your leg? He asked, catching up to me in the hallway. You're lifting your right knee and throwing it out to the side. Is something wrong? No, I responded. I'm just trying to get my underwear straightened out. We laughed together, looking forward to our special Valentine Independence Day date night. Well, I can't tell you how many comments were from people who know about that underwear maneuver. And now I can't go anywhere here at the home with 2,000 independent living residents without somebody saying to me, how's your underwear today, Peg? Did you get your underwear all straightened out? Dad got a call the next day from his friend Steve, who lives down in Virginia. And he said, can I talk to Peg for a minute? And Dad said, well, I'll put it on speaker. And he called out, Peg, how's your underwear today? It's like everybody knows about my underwear, so I have to be careful what I write.
Well, again, that's the point. You brought it up. I'm assuming you're not going commando for this conversation, are you?
Michael, I don't do that, honey, except when I take a shower and go to bed.
Well,
but then you added a little comment at the...
Well, I saw it, like thousands of other people. I scrolled by and I saw it, and what's a son supposed to say when his mother reveals?
Well, anyway,
such a thing?
I did a nice picture of Dad and me in our red sweaters, and
It's very
right
nice.
under that,
What was Mike's comment?
Mike's comment is, "Mother, good to know you're wearing underwear again." Well, people thought that was funny, but anyway, so I have to know that whatever I write gets a big response. So.
Yeah, but it's the big responses, and we talked about this too once upon a time. The big responses are not to the big stories, unless it's something life changing, like a health emergency, But most of the big reactions are to small things. You basically got a wedgie on your way to a Valentine's dinner.
And I dealt with it.
You were waiting for your husband, and right, it's
In a very clever
well-written
way.
post. But I mean, what's your other option, Chuck? Reach back there, grab a fistful, and start tugging.
I mean, that's the way I do it.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm not alone. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, "Oh yeah, that's the wedgie kick. I do that. Oh yeah, I do that all the time. You got to do it."
Wedgie kick.
Little did I know there was a name for it.
Well, I got to tell you, Peg, that I got so many texts and emails from people that we deal with at work, who follow the podcast, follow you on social, just reaching out saying, hey, how's John doing? How's John doing?
Yeah.
It was a big outpouring, even just through email and text.
It's heartwarming. It really is. People really care. And let me tell you, he's not unique here at the home. Everybody, it's hard to run into anybody who doesn't have stents. Oh yeah, I got my stents 3 years ago. Oh, I got my stents 5 years. Oh yeah, I just got my stents last summer. And Carol and Mike, I can't remember her last name.
Last names aren't important.
It's probably better I don't use it. She said,
Yeah, I mean, since we're going to talk about their stents or their mesh bladder
Or their
thing,
underwear.
or their underpants or what,
Yeah.
whatever.
She said to John-
depilatory or something.
"John, I have 7. I have 7 stents," she said. I think she got them in 2 separate surgeries, like 4 the first time and 3 the second time.
It is a miracle, isn't it? This whole modern medicine
Oh, my
thing.
God. Listen, I met, Scott was here. Scott came right away. He was only 2 hours away by plane. And you were 7.
My younger brother.
Yeah, our middle son. So he came, and he was here in time to take me to the hospital to be with Dad when he got his stents. And afterwards, they were pushing Dad down the hall into the recovery room, and the doctor came out. He has a long, fancy name, but he is a cardiologist, but he is an interventionalist cardiologist. And he is the doctor, Dr. W-A-N-G, Dr. Wang. What a delightful man.
Wong or Wang?
I guess we who speak English would call it Wang, but I do believe they pronounce it Wang. He pronounces it Wang.
Is that
But
right?
I'm no expert. But anyway,
Well, 2 Wongs don't make it white.
oh,
Oh, but 2 whites made the airplane.
I don't get it.
Almost.
Rights.
Almost.
2 rights
Oh,
made the
that's
airplane.
You were close, Chuck. So anyway,
Well, I just wisped a little bit.
Dr. Wang came out into the hallway. Scott and I were standing there, and he said, "Do you have a minute? Come in here. I want to show you something. I want to share something with you." So this cardiologist, interventionalist, who is in such demand and world famous, pulled up a couple of chairs. He said, "Sit here." So Scott was next to me, and he has this big computer on his desk, big screen monitor. And he said, and this is what just happened in the cath lab. And he proceeded to show us a video of Dad's procedure, going up through the arteries, and putting the stent in. First of all, he showed us the blockage. It was an artery that was pinched together. Nothing could get through the left main artery. I mean, it was completely shut off. And this is what caused the heart attack. And then he showed them going up through there, and they have a camera, and they have, I don't know, it's amazing. It really is a miracle. And then they showed, and he said, and this is the after. And they showed that same artery that had been so pinched opened up fully with this kind of a meshy looking stent. And the blood could flow right through. It was just amazing. So the other 2 were not as seriously blocked as this left main. But anyway, yeah, it was quite an experience, and it was very educational. And every once in a while he would look at us and say, "Do you understand? Do you get this? Do you see what's happening?" And a couple of times I said, "Uh-huh," but I didn't really. And Scott asked a lot of questions, and Dr. Wong was so impressed that Scott was so interested. He was so flattered that somebody would actually understand what he was saying and ask questions, and they had quite a back and forth, and well, it was a good experience. And then the next day,
Well, yeah, for me, that was a big lesson too. That's Dirty Jobs 101. I mean, if you're curious about what people do, like really curious about how they make a living, that's a kind of flattery that you can't, well, you can fake it, but I think people know when you're not. But it's that plus mortal stakes, and if I were like interviewing you now, not as your son, but just like I'm trying to, what would I ask? Like you're a humorist. Your whole world is humor. Your whole reason right now at 86 is to look around and find the humor in a thing. Has this made it harder to do that?
no,
Has
absolutely.
it made it more challenging?
It's made it easier. It's made it easier because I know how important it is to see the little things now, to appreciate the little things. A couple of things happened in the hospital that really got my attention, aside from this procedure. That night, before we left the hospital, Dad was bleeding in the groin. And they were applying pressure and ice and all that you do to stop the bleeding. Well, the next morning when Scott and I got there, Dr. Wong was coming in, and he said, "Oh, well, let's take care of this. We're not going to fool around with this anymore." And he said to Dad, "I'm going to take a couple of stitches in this to close it up so that you stop bleeding." And Dad said, now during the procedure, they did not give Dad heavy duty, what do you call that, put you to sleep?
Painkillers, anesthesia.
They just gave
anesthesia.
him something called, it was very light, twilight sleep. And so Dad was aware somewhat of what was going on and could feel the pressure in his groin area where they had something called a balloon pump, and they were sending up things up to the heart through the groin. So Dr. Wong walked in and he said, "We'll just take a couple of stitches." And Dad said, "You mean you're here to hurt me again?" And we thought that was kind of funny. And Dr. Wong said, "Do you know how fortunate you are, young man, that you can feel pain? 50% of all people who experience a heart attack do not make it to the hospital alive. 50% of heart attack victims, die before they even get to the hospital." And when he finished, Dad said, "I didn't feel a thing." He said, "Didn't hurt me at all." So that was sort of humorous. Yeah.
Well, what about now, though? That's 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. I mean, you're at the home. You're looking around. You're up to your neck in mortality, really.
Oh, Mike, let me
And
tell you
I-
something funny. Hate to interrupt you, but this is my podcast.
Please. I didn't even have a question fully formed. I was just making
go ahead,
sounds.
honey.
Felt like it was
You
my
wanna
turn
finish?
to say. No, I'm done. No, be a
I'm
humorist. Go
talking
ahead.
about mortality and humor. So we live here with almost 2,000 other people who are our contemporaries. There are some who are still in their 60s and 70s, but many of them are in their 80s and 90s, and even I think there are 20-some who are over 100, centenarians. Oh,
20?
I think
Over
used to be
20 people?
23. I'm not sure what it is right now.
Wow.
Probably less.
Or maybe even more. But
Yeah, right. I mean, it's
Right.
always.
so,
come and going.
mortality is part of our lives. I mean, there are boards in the post office where people's names are posted very tastefully and on pretty wood, people who pass away in that particular month. I mean, it's a fact of life and death, and we all look at it, and it's where we are in life. Well, Dad is on the shuffleboard league. It just finished. His division just finished all their games. So,
to be clear, Mom, just so people understand, this is not like, half a dozen people on the Lido deck.
Oh,
right?
no, there were
On the Love
79
Boat playing
teams this
shuffleboard.
time. That means
79 teams?
158 people were in the shuffleboard league. Okay, so we got
Wow.
so we got what do you call it? A message that's sent out to everybody, not a flyer, because this is through email.
A group email.
What? Yeah, a group email. It was a group email,
email.
but it was like a regular. Oh, and I can't think of the word. That's part of getting old. It'll come to me. Yeah,
Pamphlet?
Something like that. Anyway, so it was sent out to everybody in the league, and at the end they said, "We're sad to announce that 3 members from the shuffleboard league who have played in the past, and some now have died, have passed away, and we're sorry." And Dad came running in here the other day, because I don't get the message because I'm not on the shuffleboard league. Dad came running in. He said, "Did you know Eddie Betts died?" I said, "No way." Well, these are friends of ours, and we have mutual good friends, and they moved here after we did. I said, "No way." I said, "There must be another Eddie Betts here." John showed me the flyer thing. He said, "Here's their picture." It was a picture of him and his wife, Thelma. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. What a shock. I had seen them recently, and now he is like 92 or 93, but he is youthful." So I immediately called our mutual friend, Amy, and I said, "Amy, have you heard anything from Eddie Betts lately?" And she said, "Yeah, a few days ago." I said, "Well, we just got an announcement that he passed away." She said, No, I would have heard something." I said, "Yeah, I think he passed away a few days ago." And she said, "Glenn, come over here." And they were in a grocery store, and she called her husband over and told him, and he said, No way. And so I said, "Okay, well, you make some phone calls," because they have a lot of mutual friends. They travel in the same group. And in the meantime, I called his widow, Thelma, to say how sorry I was I hadn't known sooner, because this was several days earlier. Well, Eddie answered the phone. I said, Eddie Betts?" He said, "Yeah, how you doing, Peg?" I said, "Well, I'm in shock. Wait a minute, I'm going to have to sit down. I received an announcement." And he said, "Oh, let me tell you, you received an announcement that I died." Well, it's not true. He said, "My neighbor came over yesterday and said, 'Look at this.' Well, they didn't play shuffleboard this year, so they didn't get the announcement, so they weren't aware that he was deceased." So his neighbor said, "Well, look at this." Well, they all had a good laugh about it. So in the meantime, I said, "Eddie, please give Amy a call. Tell her that you are still with us." He said, "Okay, I'll do that." Okay.
Maybe send her a text. I think a phone call from beyond the grave, it could really, I mean, that has to be stunning.
"I'm not dead yet." Remember that?
He's resting.
So in the meantime,
You will be
in the
soon.
meantime, I called Casey, the woman who puts out the newsletter. Oh, that's what it is. It's a newsletter.
Oh, there you go.
And she said,
Oh.
"Oh, Peggy," she said, "I've been notified." She said, I am so sorry. This has taught me a lesson to verify the information that people give me. I was given that information erroneously, obviously. She said, "Do you have Eddie's number? I'm going to give him a call, and I need to apologize personally." And I said, "Okay, but don't worry too much about it because he's laughing harder than anybody." Okay.
Sure, because he can.
So then
You
I
dodged a
called
bullet.
Amy this morning. I said, "Amy, how you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm okay." I said, "Well, I guess you know the good news." She said, "Wait a minute. Glenn just walked in with the paper, and he wants you to know that he just looked up the obituaries, and Eddie's name is not in it." But Eddie had called them, and so all is cool. But there are other.
I mean, but the moment when you called him, Mom, you call Thelma, his widowed
right.
wife, and he answers the phone. What's the very like? Walk me through the emotions as your brain tries to make sense of the fact.
Well, first of all, I think I felt relief. And then I really did sit down. And I said, "Eddie, apparently there's some erroneous information out there." He said, "Oh, yeah, I know. My neighbor came over and told me." And he laughed. So this morning, after I called Amy, and she said, "Oh, yeah, we know, and his name is not in the obituaries." But I talked to him this morning, and he doesn't feel well. She said,
Oh no!
She said, "Should I be worried?" And I said, "No." I said, "We have a nice, really good medical center here, and I'm sure he'll be fine." So anyway.
So just so I'm totally clear at this point, Eddie Betts is alive.
He's alive and well. He has bad cold. He really has a very bad cold. And so I talked to him again this morning, and he assured me that he's up and around and he's good. But
the reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated.
the points of yes, Eddie Betts' demise. The what?
Has been greatly exaggerated.
The news.
Yeah, it's the reports. I think it's the reports of my demise or the reports of my death.
The reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated.
I'm pretty sure it was Mark
The
Twain.
reports of Eddie Betts'
me.
demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Right. Or Eddie Betts is still with us. I think they might appreciate
Lives on.
that. I don't know. I was my death was erroneously reported years ago.
I kind of remember that. Refresh my memory.
Oh, do you? Good.
Well, I mean, it was wasn't you though. I mean, well, what I mean is, there was
that's
another
right.
Mike Rowe.
Yeah, there was another Mike Rowe, but the one that made the rounds was the photo of a bank robber.
Oh, right. It looked just
Remember?
like you.
This guy looked just like me. He was wearing a ball cap and a gray hoodie. And, you know, it was a photo from the bank that he robbed, and it was sort of an all-points bulletin, nationwide
Be on the
thing,
lookout for this
be
guy?
on the lookout for this guy. Yes, and somebody put it on Facebook, and under it, I mean, just thousands of people were like, "Dude, that's Mike Rowe. Somebody could get it's the Dirty Jobs guy." And maybe they canceled his show. He's robbing banks. Who knows what happened? I was in Baltimore. I don't know if I saw you on this trip or not, but I I arranged to go over. I think it might have been Fox and Friends. It was one of the news shows. But I went on to disavow my larceny. But I went on in a gray hoodie and a ball cap. And I really did look just like the guy just sitting there going, "No, it's not me." But, I mean, really, mistaken identity, deep fakes, misinformation, disinformation, it's... You know, it's not unique to where you're living right now. It's everywhere.
Well, this was a funny episode that ended happily.
And Mike, you were correct. It is reports. The reports of my demise.
And it was Mark Twain.
Sorry, the reports of my death
Oh,
are
the
greatly
reports of my death.
exaggerated.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that's...
You're not getting a nail file, are you, Peggy?
Yeah, what are you doing over
You
there?
are?
Listen.
You were getting a nail file. You reached into the
But
drawer
I
for
was
a nail
going to
file.
be really
Unbelievable.
I'll put that off till later.
You were going to be really quiet. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
It's
What is it? What is it with you? Is it like a nervous tick?
no, but
Is it subconscious?
you know, if
you
something
think?
feels a little rough, then you address it. But I can wait. I'll do it before dinner.
File your nails. Nobody cares.
Hey, we did something different last night. You want to hear about our exciting Thursday evening?
Probably.
Well,
Yeah.
on Wednesday, we had dinner at Lakeside. Well, that's the cafe. And things are informal. You don't make a reservation. You just walk in, you get a tray, and you walk down. There's a hotline, and there are maybe 4 different entrees to choose from, all good, and veggies. And then on the other side are salads and desserts and beverages. Anyway, oh, and then there's a grill, and you can order something hot right from the grill, like salmon or chicken or all kinds of stuff, sandwiches. So we enjoy eating there. So at the next table were Agnes and John. I won't give their last names, but they're in charge of bingo on Thursday nights. And they're very good at it, apparently. But Dad and I have never played bingo. As a kid, I might have played as a kid, but bingo really never did much appeal to me. But shuffleboard has ended, and after dinner, Dad and I play pool. But I thought, well, something a little bit different. And occasionally we play other games. So I said to Agnes and John, tell me about bingo. They said, well, it's Thursday night. It's down in Erickson Hall. Hundreds of people come. Come on, you'll enjoy it. And I said, okay, but we haven't played, and I'm not sure we'll know how to play. John looked at me and he said, do this. Bingo, can you do that? So I said, bingo. He said, you'll be fine. Can you count to 75? Do you recognize numbers up to 75? I said, yeah. And do you know the letters of the alphabet? B-I-N-G-O. And he said, you two will be fine. I said, okay. Do they play a lot of cards? Because I met a woman here who plays 36 cards. Not here. She goes to a big fancy bingo hall down in Essex somewhere, and she's won $1,000. They pay big, and she plays 36 cards. And I said, these people don't. He said, you can play 1 card or 2 cards or 3 cards. Some people play 4. You can stick with 1 if you want for the first time. So, Dad.
So how's it work? Do you buy the card?
As you go
basically?
in, Dad and I decided we could handle 2 cards. So we each got 2 cards, and it's $1 a card. So we paid $4. So we sat at the table. The cards are really neat. You remember years ago, when I was little, you played with pieces of corn. And you put a kernel of corn on a number. And you better hadn't hit your card or your corn goes all over the place. Well, these cards are really sophisticated. They have like a little window that you, at the top of each number, a little red window, then you just pull it down, cellophane, you can see through it. So when they call that number, you just pull that little window down. It's really easy. And we kind of enjoyed it. Well, because the people at the table were nice ladies, and I knew 2 of them. But Dad doesn't hear real well, so we were sitting with our backs to the callers because that's the least desirable place, and we got there late. So, but there was 1 chair on the other side, so Dad went around and sat in that chair, which meant I was no longer alongside of him, and I am his ears often. But the lady sitting next to him was Marilyn, and she was so nice. She took him under her wing. And she watched his card. And every time they call a number, she'd repeat it in his ear. 65. Oh, 65, she'd say. So she was very helpful. So we both decided that if Dad won, he was going to give her half of the pot. Well, the pot for the first 10 games was $16, which is not a bad little pot. Now you, Chuck, who gamble big time, you find that little.
I just play poker. I don't
Oh,
gamble.
I see. And then the next 5 games were $15, I believe. I think that's how it went. And then the last game where you have to cover your whole card turned out to be $51. Well, bottom line was neither Dad nor I won, but he thought he won one time and he yelled, "Bingo!" And they sent somebody over and he said, "Oh, no." And then Marilyn said, "No, you didn't win, John. You have to do this or whatever." Because it was a special one where you get special numbers, like you just do a window. It's hard to explain, and the four corners, or you do an X, or you. And then everybody.
Is there a penalty? Is there a penalty for a premature
Well,
bingo?
yeah, everybody looks at you and
Bingo, I
laughs.
suppose.
That's all.
Just shame.
Just shame on
shame.
you.
There's a penalty box like in hockey. You go there and you feel shame.
You put
Just
your
sit
head
there
down.
in the bingo
But
box.
and then for this,
Yeah, but not being able to hear in a bingo game, that's devastating.
I know.
That's rough.
Next time
That's a-
I'll take a
that's a-
paper and pencil and I'll write it, what she says.
They should have a board or something, where the number flashes up for the hard of hearing.
Exactly.
That would be good.
Yeah.
We used to play bingo in my family all
You
the
did?
time. All the time when I was a kid. And sometimes we still do. When we go to the beach with the kids, we'll play bingo. It's a lot of fun.
It seems kind of like
Not really. It's a little bit
Never
of fun.
played a game. Never in my life have I bought a bingo card.
Well,
I
I grew up Catholic.
Oh,
so,
well, sure.
You
Yeah.
played bingo.
Yeah. I think bingo is big in the Catholic Church. I mean, not on Sundays maybe,
Very
but
big,
yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have special
Any day's
games.
fine.
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
it really isn't quite as demanding as, say, pinochle or mahjong or bridge, probably. But
Bridge is the tough one. I don't get bridge is a commitment. It seems.
I'll tell you, bridge players
never really
are
learned.
pretty serious people. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't enjoy being around them.
Well,
really.
you don't talk, you don't eat, you don't. So
Right, because everything could be a tell, right? Everything could be a clue
oh
to
yeah,
your partner.
you eat a chip. Hearts.
Yeah, that could.
Yeah. Yeah. You eat an olive. Spades. Yeah.
Spades.
I guess so.
Sure.
But anyway, to each his own.
Yeah. All right. So what's next? What's your day look like?
Oh, well, let's see. We leave for dinner at 4. We meet our Friday group. There are 6 of us, old friends from years ago. Mm-hmm. And we will have dinner together. And then the guys will shoot pool and the girls will play. Tonight we're playing pinochle. Usually we play rummy cube, but we'll play pinochle tonight.
And there'll be an underwear check at some point, I assume.
Not that I know of. Not that.
It's not strip
No.
pinochle.
No.
Oof. There's an image. There's an image. Strip pinochle every Friday at
At the
Oakcrest.
home.
8 o'clock at the
Oh
home.
my God. You want to turn the lights off for that
Dear.
one.
It's the game nobody wins.
Yeah. Or wear a mask over your eyes.
Very funny.
Last week, we had a concert. There's an accomplished musician here who's a former Baltimore County school teacher. Keith
Keith?
Derrickson. And he's accomplished. And not only does he play the organ and the piano, he speaks very well. Well, when he retired, he started a little business where he talks about composers, Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, and he dresses up like them. And he goes around to elementary schools and talks about these composers, plays their works, and talks about why they're different or what makes their work so unique. And so he
But does he do it in the first
Oh,
person?
absolutely.
Like he shows
He
up
is-
as Chopin.
Last Sunday he was Bach, and talked about his family, his immediate family, his siblings, his parents, and it was delightful. And has a big screen up there and PowerPoint pictures, and then he'll sit and he'll play something on the harpsichord, something on the organ, something on the piano. So I sit there, and in a sense, I'm doing my plein air writing because I'm writing about this. And I have to make it good. I mean, I can't just say, and then Keith sat at the piano and he played Prelude and B sharp. And then he put his wig on, and then, I have to make it interesting. And
No, don't do that.
but the most interesting part, and the reason I could call it plein air, is the people around me and their reactions to what Keith is doing. And when he plays pieces that are sentimental pieces, I mean, I look around at these people and I see them dabbing tears. I see their eyes closed and I see them nodding. Oh, yes, I remember this piece from... It's wonderful that he can bring people together in such a way that, they can kind of relive important moments in their lives.
Well, don't sell yourself short. I'm looking at the comments right now underneath your nuclear wedgie, or whatever that post was called. You have almost 2,000 people. 2,000
have
people,
commented.
and they're not... have commented. They, some of them are they're describing the tears of laughter that are just streaking down their face.
Well, that's
they're
a good thing.
They're relating to you're absolutely right. The audience, Mom, this is the point. The audience is every bit as important. The people looking at the painting are as important as the painter. The people reading the book are as important as the author. The people listening to the music are as important as the musician. Because without the audience, it's nothing.
Exactly. And Mike, I didn't want to be on social media. I just thought it was a waste of time. People write about, today I went to the store and I washed my hair and I went, who cares? But I've learned...
Hey, by the way, an hour ago we were talking about our haircuts, so careful.
We did a whole episode about cutting hair, yeah.
Right.
Social media has really taught me who my audience is when I write my books. They've given me an appreciation for what my audience likes, what they want, what they appreciate, what turns them on, what makes them laugh. And their comments tell me that. I don't read all of their comments by any means, but, maybe a few dozen gives me an appreciation, and I'll skip around. And some of them are so funny. And then there are these horrible, horrible people. Mm-hmm. What do you call those people? They might be bots or they might be real people. Trolls who say,
correctors.
"Oh, Anna, I really like your picture. And you look so familiar. Have you been to Ireland before? Or have you been to North Carolina before? Or, I hate to be rude, but I've been trying to friend you, and and I'm so proud of my followers. They don't give these guys the time of day, or they'll say, get lost, jerk, or they just totally ignore them, and I'm so glad.
When is your next book done, for the love of God?
Well, it will certainly be out before next Christmas, but I should finish it by the end of summer, maybe.
Let's go ahead and fast track that a bit. Let's get it done in the spring.
Oh, really?
So we can,
Oh.
Yeah. People want it.
I'm well on the way.
And it's...
It's funny. It's funny. When I write, and I'm sure this is the same with all writers, I am there. I am there in the setting that I'm writing about. Yes, I've been writing for the last 2 weeks a story about a man who lives here, who came to me with his story. He came to Dad with his story. Dad put him on to me. When he was a child, his family was banished to Siberia. He lived in Lithuania. And he was 7 at the time. And his family was sent to Lithuania was sent to Siberia because his father had been born in America, was an American citizen, although he left as a young child. And they had harbored a couple of Jews on their farm during the Nazi occupation of Lithuania. So his name was, and he had a big farm. His father had a big farm. And when communism took over, of course, it was all about not the individual farms, but the big conglomerates, the big, for the country. And if you objected to them taking over your farm, then you were going to be banished, and that's what happened to them. And he tells such a good story about the years they were in Siberia. And they were greeted after a couple of horrible weeks. I'm not going to give my story away, but they were greeted by an officer who said, "You will be here at the invitation of Comrade Stalin for the next 25 years, which is a death, it's a death notice. Yeah. But anyway, so I've been in Siberia for the last 2 weeks. And yesterday I wrote for 6 hours. And at the end, I looked outside and I was surprised there was no snow. I've been there in Siberia where it's just horrible and so cold, and everybody's got frostbite. And so anyway, that's the interesting thing about writing. You are what you're writing about, for that period of time.
So have you turned a corner from comedy into geopolitical autobiographical ruminations?
There is not humor in this story, but there are maybe 3 stories in my book that have, that are kind of devoid of humor, although there is some lightness. There is some lightness. Dark humor, you might say.
There you go. Well, on that note, I'm happy to report that as far as we know, Ed Betts is still with us, and I hope he will be for many years to come. I hope so.
I'm sure he will. He's a vibrant man. He really is, and nice.
Excellent. And how did Dad do in the shuffleboard?
I think they came in
finals?
Second.
Out of 79?
Well, no. There are 4 different divisions in the league. In his division, he came in second.
Okay.
But
right.
Overall...
important to have goals.
I don't know. I guess they have to count up the points. Oh, but Dad was... he was highlighted in this latest newsletter. He got...
Not like Ed Betts.
Praise the Lord.
Ed Betts was highlighted,
really.
too. That's not the kind of highlighting we need.
He got 11 points in one turn. 11 points. That's
pretty good.
How do you do that? That's 3. He must have had a hanger.
Yeah, right.
He must have had 2 hangers and a 3.
Must have. Yeah.
Wow, that's a
well,
big
I guess
slide.
there are a lot of different ways you could do it, but yeah.
No, that's the only way you can do it.
I might make
points,
a sign
4,
for
4,
him
and 3.
to carry. No, that would be.
Yeah, so that's exactly what he needs, to be walking around with a sign, like a sandwich board around his neck saying, "I go to 11."
11 points. I know. Well, yeah, he ought to go up to that woman who has 7 stents and say, "Do you have 11 points on the shuffleboard?"
Right.
And at that, I think it's probably time to say goodbye, isn't it?
I think it is, Mom. You have a great dinner. Say hi to Dad. And we'll do this again in a month or so, or sooner if you want.
And the good news is he's doing so
happens.
well at cardiac rehab. They told him yesterday he might only have to come to 12 sessions. They give 36, and most people do, they do a lot more than 12. So Dad's really doing well. He is. In between, he goes down and gets on this, on the equipment, and he walks, and so he's doing very well. So you don't need to worry about Dad.
That's great. No, well,
Awesome.
great to hear. Tell him hi, and I'll give him a call tomorrow, offline when you're busy doing something.
We shoot pool
catch
with
up
the
privately.
girls at 2:00 on Saturday.
You're gonna have to make an
They're
appointment.
old. They're
All
two
right.
old ladies. They don't know whose turn it is, and they don't know if they're high ball or low ball. But boy, can they put those balls in the pockets. They've been playing for years.
Well, yeah. Do they use a cue?
Oh no,
or they
they're
just
good.
Pick them
No,
up.
indeed,
And
they do everything right, but they just can't remember whose turn it is, and they can't remember. They invariably say, "High ball or low ball." We tell them, but they're good. They're so good.
will you tell them I said
tell
hello?
Okay.
Yeah, not that they'll remember. All right, love you.
Okay, guys. Nice to see you. Nice to be with you again.